What's up, guys? Welcome back to the WRPF podcast, episode 56, episode number 6 or 7 on our Meet Director series. We have Kehaulani Richardson. All right. Kay
Kehaulani.
from, oh my gosh, I'm an asshole. I should have done it before I started recording. Uh, Kay, also
Yeah.
known as Kay, the other half of Fighter Quit Promotions. You guys know and love Micah Marino, the man in front of the camera, in front of the scene. Kay is his second half that goes into a lot of the awesome Fighter Quit meets. I mean, you and Micah run more competitions, I think, than anyone I know. And you guys are a freaking killer team. I know when I asked you to be on, you're like, oh, well, Mike is kind of usually the one for the camera. Like, yeah, well, you know what? Let's have people get to know you, because
I was like, oh, I hope I
you
don't
have a
say something
super
wrong.
extensive story in powerlifting too. You've been doing this shit a hot damn minute. And so, like I said before we started recording, we had Leo on recently. Leo brought you up. You came up in the Hawaii powerlifting scene, and we want to hear about it. All right, we want to get to know you so we can get to know better Fighter Quit Promotions. And welcome to the podcast. That was your long-winded intro.
Thanks. It's actually just FQ promotions.
FQ
Just
Promotions.
yeah.
It's easier.
Just to be technical. Yeah.
A good acronym. FQ
FQ.
Promotions.
Yeah.
So before FQ Promotions, before Las Vegas, hit us with what got you involved in the sport of powerlifting? According to Open Powerlifting, which we have open, your first competition was in 2012, 12 years ago. You were
Yep.
30 years young. So you found powerlifting in your 30s, right?
Yep.
So what were you doing before that, which led you ultimately to powerlifting?
I was actually CrossFitting at that time, and I was training for
OG CrossFitter
marathons
then.
too.
OG, that's the early days.
Yeah, so let's see what came first. It was like CrossFit and then marathons. So like I was doing CrossFit and marathons like at the same time. And when I was doing CrossFit, so it's like high intensity training and then there's like a strength portion to it. So whenever we would do the workouts of the day, they call it WODs. They whenever we had strength training, I would always kind of be in my corner, like a little corner. I was, lifting too much for the women, not enough for the guys. So I was kind of like, I'd be my own partner. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna just go over there. Can I just go in my corner? I'm just gonna do my own thing. Um, and then at one time, after a couple of years, the strength coaches asked me to do a competition, but it was an Olympic lifting competition with the clean and jerk, snatches above your head and stuff like that. So I thought they were crazy because I was like, a competition? What are you talking about? I had no clue about competing, being competitive. I'm just like, I'm at a gym and I'm just working out. That's all I want to do, and I
Just
thought they were
general health is what
crazy.
you found it for.
Huh?
Just for general health is what kind of got you into the
Yeah,
gym.
just for general
Yeah.
health. And like, there was probably five of my friends that were like, hey, let's try CrossFit. I'm like, okay, let's go. So there was like five of us that started CrossFit together and we just thought it was a cool thing. We're gonna go hang out, we're gonna go to the gym, be healthy, do these crazy WODs, feel like we're gonna throw up after and, die every day kind of thing. And so we just thought it was cool. And yeah, the strength training coaches, at that time I was CrossFitting at CrossFit 808 in Kalihi. And, it was Josh and at that time Joe, two of the coaches, they were like, let's do a competition. And I told the coaches, I said, I'm not gonna do it unless you do it. And so they're like, okay. So I got, I think I got two of the other girls to do the competition with us. And then the two of the coaches, the guy coaches, did it with us. So I think there were like five of us that did the Olympic lifting competition. And I won. I did pretty well. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, okay, just throw the bar up. Okay, we're good. And um after that, I was like, well, I kind of like deadlifting. I don't really like this overhead stuff. I'm scared I'm gonna die. The bar is gonna fall on my head. And at one point in CrossFit, I got a concussion trying to do a clean and jerk. So because the bar like hit my chin and I was like, oh, okay, knocked myself out.
Oh
So,
shit. So
yeah,
you weren't one of those natural people who just start snatching for the first time and look like you
yeah,
should be going to the Olympics in 2012, your first year into it. You were one of the I coached CrossFit for years, so I know it was like half and half. We either had people who came in, you're like, holy crap, you never snatched, you never overhead squatted before, or you one of those people that were hitting your chin and bleeding
yeah,
everywhere. So
yeah.
you were the
Didn't know what I
latter.
was doing. I was just like, they're like, oh, put it over your head. I'm like, okay, and I did it, and I was like, oh, I just hit myself. Like, is there a technique to this? So, um, yeah. So after that, let me see, what was I saying?
Weightlifting wasn't for you. You
Oh
like
yeah,
easier shit
the
of just picking it
yeah,
up
that
and putting
wasn't
it
for me.
down.
I was like, well, I kind of like deadlifting. I was stuck at 295 at one point. And so I was like, well, let's look up. I Googled deadlift. I had no idea what I'm doing. Like, I don't know about lifting, like pounds, kilos, like it's just foreign to me. And so I was like, well, I'm kind of good at deadlift, I think. So I Googled deadlift and the first thing that came up was mono barbell. And sent an email to Mono Barbell and I was just like, hey, it looks like you have this competition coming up. Like, what is this? What is your gym? Like, and they said, okay, come, first they said, well, do you train? And I said, well, I work out. Like, is there a difference? Like, so I had no idea what these terms were or anything. And so go to Mono Barbell, I see a couple of people. Justin was there, one of the owners. And they gave me a tour of the gym, which is just like to this day, it's like looks like a garage, and so a warehouse garage. And so Justin was like, I'll teach and train you. And I said, okay, cool. Like, I don't know what that means, but let's do it. And so he trained me to deadlift, and it was a push-pull competition. And so he was like, well, how much do you bench? And I was like, I don't know. And so I could not even bench like 95 pounds. I was like, I had no clue what I was doing again, and CrossFit, you don't really bench press, you have a lot of
Especially
different
not in those
movements.
early days. Yeah,
Yeah,
early like getting closer to 2013, 2014 is when there started to be kind of that crossover of powerlifting
yeah,
into
yeah,
CrossFit. But I remember me and my time in 2012. Yeah, we were deadlifting before class. Why? Because it's easy. You can have a group of 15 people set up on a
yeah,
barbell. You don't have enough benches to lay down and start benching. Our CrossFit
yeah,
never freaking benched. Ever,
yeah.
ever,
Who
ever.
benches?
And deadlifts were something that like people either liked it or not. And that was kind of the thing that showed if you were, oh wow, I'm kind of good at this. Like you might not be able to
Yeah,
snatch 65 pounds and you're annoyed because you can not even put tens on the female bar. But when we
yeah,
had those women who were deadlifting over 2 plates, oh crap, you're pushing 300. You knew in a gym like that, like that means you're good at that something. So that's what for sure
right.
had you want to be like, all right, let me dig into this a little bit more
Yeah,
so I
like
don't give
what is
myself
this
another
about?
concussion.
Yeah. Yeah. And so after that, I did the push pull and it was fun and I won. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, and so I asked Justin and I was like, so what do people do? Like, do they stop? Do they keep going? Like, are you gonna still train me? Like, I had no idea what was next. And so he was like, well, there's a lot of people that they just keep going. And I said, okay, well, if you're gonna still train me and be my coach, like, not a big deal. And so after that, that qualified me for, at that time, the IPL Worlds in Las Vegas. So I went in November. So that first competition was August. Worlds was in November. So I went up there with Leo, Sue, Justin, my other teammate Henry. So a bunch of us went there just to go have fun, and then I won that one and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. Like, so and then after that, I qualified for the LA Fit Expo. I think that was in February. And at that time, I think I was in between CrossFit, training to run a marathon with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Like I was training with them, like hardcore. Every Saturdays we had to run like, I don't know, 5, 10 miles. And then I was doing CrossFit at the same time. And then I'm trying to do these powerlifting meets and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm like, I must be crazy. And so when I got the invite for the LA Fit Expo, Justin was like, I don't want you to get hurt. Like, so he kind of implanted the seed in my head, like I think it's kind of time to where you kind of need to choose. Like, what do you want to do? What do you really want to do? And not just listen to other people, like, because then I have my marathon friends like, well, what are you doing? You're trying to train for a marathon. And then CrossFit friends like, hey, no, we're, this. And so then my powerlifting friends is like, well, you're good at powerlifting. So kind of have to sift through a lot of, what was my choice gonna be, like what am I really gonna try to excel in? Um, and so I remember after one of the I guess it was Worlds. So after Worlds, I told my coach, I said, hey, I'm gonna take a break and I'm gonna train for a marathon. And so the very next day I go to the gym and I'm squatting in the cage and he yells across the gym and he's like, that's not running for a marathon. And I started laughing. And so that's how I kind of knew like, okay, I think this is like I got bit by the iron bug, And after that, I still did try to do the marathon. I did the marathon and it was funny. I want to say it was like mile 18, something crazy. I had this thing in my head and I was like, you need to stop. You're gonna get hurt. And I stopped running and I just walked the rest of the marathon. And like it was so weird, like right in the middle of it, I was like, yep, this is not for me. And so that was my last marathon. I don't know if it was like 2013 or 14 or whatever, but um and I told myself I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do the LA Fit Expo. I don't want to get hurt. I'm like 2 months out at that point or whatever. And so I went up to the LA Fit Expo. I think it was me, Sue, and Leo. Um and we did that and it was a pretty cool battle. I think I was actually in the 165 weight class at that time, I want to say. And it was a battle between me and Melinda Barnes, super cool lady. Um, and yeah, it was pretty cool. Like we were Wilks, right, back then. So I won by Wilks. She had the heavier, we're always like neck and neck too. Like I think our squats were kind of the same. She had a bigger bench than me. And then our deadlift, like maybe my deadlift was like maybe like that. You know how you have that battle, right? It's like it comes down to the last pull. And it was funny because even our pulls were like I would chip a record. She'd chip my record, like her second attempt, I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. Like the competitiveness, and during the competition. And I want to say she might have pulled more than me or something like that, but I won by Wilks because I weighed in lighter, right, at that time. So that was pretty cool. Like I got the podium on that. I think it was like third place or something. So, but it was kind of cool.
And deadlifted 374 in your third competition ever, right?
Yeah,
Less than a
yeah,
year into it. It's like, and that shows. And then I remember in my early days of coaching around that exact same time, there were so many people who wanted to do everything, right?
yeah.
And you see that you're pretty good at doing all these different things, so why not keep doing them? But then you kind of have that realization where it's like, if I want to be really good at just one, I have to kind of choose one. And running is the complete opposite of what powerlifting was,
Yeah.
So dove headfirst in, 6 months in, already pulls 374 and is already getting to kind of experience all these, these cool things. And it's a testament to how lucky you were being somewhere like Hawaii. Like when I heard Leo telling me about that gym that you were training at, it's like, man, like that's something special to be able to stumble in on that, especially at that day and age where powerlifting
Yeah.
was so underground. You were so fortunate that you were able to step foot into somewhere like that because it created a whole pathway of a whole future for you, right? And so
Yeah.
early on
Yeah.
in it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, after that, I like there was a different choice that like I kind of heard of and I discovered USAPL kind of at that time and I was like, huh, USAPL, huh, IPF, like, I'm like, what is this? And um just less than like you said 6 months ago, like I had no clue what I was doing, right? So I'm like, what are these different federations? Like I just want to lift weights, And so I kind of did some research and contacted Anthony Harris and I asked him, I was like, hey, how do I get to nationals? What is this? What's the process? And asked him a lot of questions and then he kind of took me in, and he kind of took me under my wing and now he's been my mentor for the past 12 years, and so um And so from there, I trained under him for a long time, and to this day, like, like we still keep in contact, and so and that's where I started my USAPL journey. And because I was thinking about switching lifting in USAPL, I decided to become a USPA referee. And so it was kind of like my way to give back. And, it was kind of like a loyalty thing. I kind of felt loyal to USPA at that time. And, for us in Hawaii, we're kind of in the middle of the ocean. We kind of only have each other, so to speak. And I felt like at that time, powerlifting and us being so attached to USPA that I was like, I'm going to give back. It's time for me to give back to the community, especially to that federation, because that's where I started. And because it was it kind of made me feel better because it's almost like I felt like, what's the word? Like I'm cheating on USPA by lifting in USAPL, like if that makes any sense, And so in my eyes, I was like, well, let me give back. This is my way of still sticking with the federation, but I wanted to lift in a different federation. And so, but I would still go back and lift for USPA. We had the Hawaii Fit Expo and, our world expos in Hawaii and stuff like that. And at that time too, I was, lifting, I think I lifted in WABDO. I lifted in AAU. So I've kind of always wanted to be that lifter that just went anywhere, like, and I never really wanted to be about the letters. I wanted it to be about, I just want to lift weights, and if there's a competition and if I can do it, I'm going to do it. And if I can win, cool. If there's records, cool. Like, and um, I think that's kind of like where I started. And I think, that like, meeting Micah and, he had the same background too, just let's just make it about the athletes and just make it about lifting, just powerlifting. Like the sport itself, like saved each of us in some way, shape, or form. And, we kind of built, um, running meets in that capacity, so to speak, or I don't know, whatever the word is, but so, we do run meets and we like, in the gym, it's like our family, it doesn't matter where you live. If you want to go to, PA now, if you want to do WRPF, if you want to go to IPA, like, I don't know, ABCD, whatever you want to do, like, we're going to support you and we want to be there for you. We want you to be a part of our family. Um, and so that's kind of like where it started. Well, for me anyways, I think I'm babbling now, but
Well, before we get more into present day, let's kind of finish your journey and your period. So through all this time, you're living in Hawaii, you're a USPA judge, you're competing in USAPL. USAPL wasn't very active in Hawaii, right? So you were having to
correct.
travel overseas to compete in those USAPL meets, but still very, very active because Leo and everyone, you guys were doing big things in powerlifting at that time in Hawaii. I told a story of with the episode with Leo that I went to Hawaii in 2017 for the Hawaii Fit Expo. And
That's so funny. I wonder if I was there and I
dude,
competed there.
I'll tell you, you'll know if you were
Did
there.
we meet?
If you already heard the story, sorry guys. I go with one of my athletes, this older Masters 56-year-old guy who just wanted to travel somewhere cool to compete. He buys my plane ticket. I'm like, fuck yeah, Hawaii, let's roll. My then girlfriend, now wife, was coming with us too. I roll up to. I'm thinking it's going to be a bunch of tourists. You know what I mean? I think, oh, people are going to travel to the Fit Expo because they want to go to Hawaii. I roll up in a cut off Hawaiian t-shirt. Okay. Like looking like this monster douchey white guy. I walk in and everyone just stares at me. A bunch of big, strong Hawaiians just look at me like, who the fuck is this guy? And I'm like, I stood out like a sore thumb. So if you saw a douchey guy in a sleeveless Hawaiian shirt, that was me. But so through that period, through that time, you also made a transition from competing raw to single ply. You kind of made an opposite transition that we saw a lot of people, like even Micah, getting started in single ply, transitioning to raw. So, what was that kind of switch like for you? Why you probably stayed raw early on? Your coaches didn't have you go single ply because you were doing things like CrossFit running, etc. Also, and then what made you switch to single ply from there?
So that's kind of funny because I was pretty adamant about not doing single ply. I was one of So we went to the Arnold. What year was that? 12, 13, 14. I don't know. But so we took a team up and I was the only raw athlete and everybody else was equipped at that time. And so it was funny because people were like, we should get you in a suit, we should do this or whatever. And I was very adamant about staying raw. Like I told Anthony Harris, I was like, nope, I'm gonna stay raw until I get on the podium for USAPL. Like, I'm gonna do raw. And so, so there were talk about, me starting to do equipped like early on, but I was very like, no, I want to do this. I'm doing raw. This is what I'm doing. But then I want to say like I did meet some people at the push pool, who did the equipped and things like that. I want to say my first equipped push pool, I think Anthony Harris was like overseas or whatever, and I'm so like, oh, this is my time to like kind of learn. And and he gave me the go. He's like, if you want to learn something, go ahead. And so I said, okay. So I trained with some people. They were like Team Hamlet at the time. We have like different teams in Hawaii. And so I trained with some people doing some like the bench. I had a hand-me-down bench shirt, hand-me-down deadlift. And so I just thought it was like super cool that, yeah, let's do this, let's try it. And we would sometimes do equipped in training, but it was for like overload, it was for fun. It wasn't to compete or anything like that. But so that competition that I did in single ply, it was just because I was like, let's, spur of the moment, let's try this, let's do this, and try to figure it out. And I'm not sure if like my lifts were better or the same or anything like that because it was all hand-me-down equipment and stuff like that. So it wasn't until I moved to Vegas was when I actually made the decision like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Because when I moved to Vegas, it took me about a year and a half to kind of get a good niche of family to figure out a gym. When I first moved to Vegas, I probably had 7 gym memberships. Like no joke. I had one for like EOS and like I don't know, like gosh, I can't even remember what the gym's name were, but like literally had 7 gym memberships and I was kind of I tease myself like I'm a gym gypsy. I would go to one, the next day I'm gonna go to a different one, and the next week I'm gonna go to a different one. And, just trying to find friends or trying to find people who kind of had the same mindset as me. But it was probably, yeah, it wasn't until I moved here, which was 2016. So at that time in 2016, I want to say USAPL Equipped Nationals was supposed to be in Las Vegas. And this was before COVID, right? And so the team that I went to the Arnold with, like, Anthony Harris, John Barang, like Ren, so they were all planning to do the Equip Nationals that was going to be here in Vegas. And so that's why I was like, well, I'm going to train for this meet and I'm going to lift with my family. Like, so that was kind of my way of like having a family reunion because I want to be on the same platform as them. And because they all did Equipped, when I first started and I was all like being hard-headed about it. That was my way of like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna, like really train for it and really put my all in it. And then COVID shut it down, and I was like, oh, great. Like now what I do. And so, um, when COVID shut everything down, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna stick with it. I already started training. With some equipment that I, bought on my own. I was still doing some hand-me-downs and that's when I was just like, I'm just gonna stick with it, just see how it goes. And when the next Equip Nationals comes up and everybody's gonna come up again, like, that was my thinking was the national is gonna come back after COVID and we're gonna be on the same platform again. Like that was my thinking of why I switched and why I decided to stay equipped, really. And so, a couple years pass, we're shut down, trying to figure out like, okay, now I got to build a home gym. And now, okay, where are we lifting today? And at that time, some friends were like, oh, I'm going to help you. And I said, okay, well, if you're going to help me, cool. Because of course you can't do equip lifting by yourself. So, but yeah, that's kind of the equip story. And I just kind of stuck with it. I had to just find people who were willing to help me. And then, within all that time frame, COVID and all that stuff, gym hopping, I meet Micah, and I'm like, oh, are we friends? Like, so I just remember him walking into the gym one time and I was like, gosh, I kind of need a spot. Like, so I was like, I
So
wonder if I
that
could
was
ask
you
him for
just
a
joining Fight or Quit as a member, and that's how you met him?
No, we were at Dragon's Gym. It was a gym like in the middle of Vegas at that time. I don't even know if they're still open. It's not Dragon's Lair. It was Dragon's Gym or something like that.
So this
Um,
was pre-COVID
Pre-COVID.
when
Yeah.
you
So
first met him. Okay.
pre-COVID, Dragon's Gym, we were lifting at signature strength at that time. Before it became uh what was Brandon's gym called?
Filthy Power.
Filthy. So before
Yeah.
Filthy, we were
And then there was
training at
Iron
signature
Addicts there
strength.
in Las
with
Vegas too, right?
yeah, with Rachel and Steve. I'm gonna butcher her name, but so they were owning Signature Strength. So I had a gym membership at Signature Strength, Iron Addicts, EOS, and I trained at some other gym too, like Strong House, maybe. I don't know. Like I had all these gym memberships, right? So I was like gym hopping everywhere. And so I want to say at Dragons, that's where I saw Micah. Oh, and we were training at Signature Strength at that time. And so I just met him like, but it was kind of like I was still kind of lifting on my own, like in the cages. I was always an independent lifter, lifting by myself. And here's Micah. He has a team of people lifting over there in the combo rack or I don't know whatever they're doing, monolift probably. And so, I'm just like watching. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like there's all these people. And after a while you see the same people all the time. And it's like, hey, how are you? Like, and then eventually after a few weeks, couple months, and then like, okay, I think we're friends. So um I want to say one day at the Dragons gym, I think Micah made a comment like, hey, like what time do you train? We're trying to get a team together and if you want to just do some team lifting, not necessarily that I have to be a part of the team, but just join, a group of people lifting at the same time. And so I was like, okay, we'll see, and because I was always kind of by myself, I was kind of like, I don't know, like think about it, and I was always kind of the lifter where I got scoldings back in the day too, where they're like, you need training partners. And I was like, oh, I kind of lift by myself, like I was kind of the person where I'm gonna look for a rack and I'm gonna lift by myself, just be in my own world because I just want to lift, and
It's funny, you're
so
very much not to interject, you're very much an introverted extrovert.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
like even when you told me like, oh, I don't know about being on the camera, I was like, dude, I've had conversations with you. You're extremely personable. You're gonna be fantastic. But you're just like me, where it's like you're good at it, but also you don't mind if everyone leaves you the fuck alone and you can just do
Yeah.
your own thing, right?
Yeah, I know.
I'm
I'm
that
like,
exact
I'm
same way.
okay.
I'm that exact same way.
So yeah, and yeah, so um at that time I kind of noticed, oh, and also at that time during COVID, I was traveling to Arizona and meeting up with the Preacher Power Group. Like I said, I knew Melinda for a while. We lifted back with at the Fit Expo. So I would travel to Arizona every 2 weeks. I drive over there, train with them because they have an equip team. And so because I was getting into equip lifting and I was like, man, I need people, and so I would drive over there every other week, and it was COVID time too. So no big deal. Just drive over there, come back on Sunday, and just train and do whatever. So, during that time, I was gym hopping, state hopping, like trying to figure life out. And I want to say that's when Melinda told me, she goes, you know what? You need to find a team, people who do the same thing as you and who have the same passion, or you just need to move to Arizona. And I was like, ooh, I don't know about moving to Arizona, but I could look for a team, and um, so she was actually one of the people who actually told me like, you should go befriend Micah, like be friends with him, and she was like, you don't have to be a part of the team. Just like he's like-minded, it's about powerlifting and stuff. So she kind of was one of the people who kind of encouraged me to kind of like, okay, now I have to actually talk to somebody and I have to go be friends with somebody else, like. And so at that time, like I would text him and I'd be like, "Hey, where are you guys training today? You know, are you gonna be at this gym, whatever, what time?" And they were kind of gym hopping too before they opened up the gym, Fighter Quit gym. And so for a little bit, for about a couple of months, I would just be texting Micah like, "Hey, you guys training today? What's your schedule like this week? Where are you gonna be? What time?" So I tried to make their training sessions as much as I could, and they let me crash their training parties, and then at that time, he was like, and at that time I was like shirting myself up, like, for equipped lifting, like trying to figure out how to wrap myself. And he was like, he's like, if you need help, let me know. And I was like, oh, okay. So, so that's how it kind of just started with my friendship with Micah. And, so from then on, like, it wasn't until after a couple months, and he's just like, called me up one day. He's like, hey, what's going on? Like, what's your story? Like, he just kind of let me do whatever I want. And it wasn't until a couple months later where he was like, now he wanted to know like what I was about, like what's my story, and and then during COVID, we're kind of gym hopping together. They had the Filthy North, Filthy South, then Strong House. I don't know where we were, half the time. And I kind of was like, maybe you guys should open up your own gym. Then we don't have to gym hop anymore. And then that's when they opened up Fighter Quit. It was probably during COVID time. We still had to wear masks and all that stuff. And so yeah, and then just kind of built from there, like a friendship, and then we just kind of became family after a while. Um, and I think I want to say whatever year it was when we met 5 years ago, he wanted to do a mock meet. There were some things going on and he couldn't compete like out of state or something. So he wanted to do a mock meet. And so I told him, I was like, well, I used to, help run the meets in Hawaii, so I can help you run the mock meet, And so that's kind of how we kind of got together with like, quote unquote meet directing, started off as a mock meet in the Dragons gym, and just, I don't know, it was like 8 lifters, 10 lifters, I don't know, but it was it was pretty fun. We could do our own thing. We had a little strobe light. That was the first production, red lights, all this stuff. Micah kind of goes all out, right? So it was pretty fun. Like we did that, and then we did another. So that was our first unsanctioned meet. It was just a mock meet. Then we had asked Brandon to do a meet at Filthy South. That was probably a few months after. So we got we got quite a bit of people. It was unsanctioned. Brandon let us run the meet there. Super fun, super cool meet, and that kind of started, I guess, like spiraling the motivation to like, oh, what are we gonna do next? And there was a time where we're like, oh, should we run USPA, WRPF, like USAPL? Like, what do you want to do? What's gonna be better? And I kind of like to be the back end of things, like like I just gonna stay behind the computer and what do you need me to do? Let me send an email or whatever. And so um it's kind of like whatever his ideas are, it's like, okay, let's like kind of my job to try to bring it to life, and so we kind of worked well together. Like he definitely has his part, I have my part. If I do like try to get a venue or whatever, I'm like, okay, now you gotta go to a meeting and make the deal. So it's kind of cool how we have like our two different parts, like I don't want to say like the man's job, but like, like the
Yeah,
lifting, the
it's strength and
moving,
weaknesses. You guys are
yeah,
very opposite, but it's the
yeah,
opposites that complement and are able to come together and fill a complete picture. And it
yeah.
makes it so, like I said at the beginning of this episode, you guys run more meets probably than anyone that I know. And me as a solo person who's everything by myself, it's like, holy shit, if I had to undertake all that on my own as frequently as you guys did while still doing other things, it would be so difficult. But when you have, two parts to make a whole, it helps things run so much smoother. And you guys have a perfect operation where you're able to take on and do as much as you guys do at
Mhm.
such a high level. It's like, yeah, I mean, you guys listening, you guys know, Micah's one of the people behind the American Pro, biggest pro meet ever, besides all the other Fighter Quit WRPF meets. But then Kay's former title outside of, the co-owner of FQ Productions, she's the state chair of USAPL, right? And you guys just ran the states, which ran amazingly. I'll just tell you from my meet director input, seeing how many lifters you guys had on the roster, how it was broken up, and how you guys were able to start that second session when it needed to, and like amazing. And so that's where you have your expertise, he has his. You guys can come together, do both those federations, cross both those lines in a way that not a lot of people are doing. Like there's only a couple of us that are juggling those different federations, juggling those different standards, if you will, different procedures, if you will. And it's cool watching you guys work together and how you're the yin and yang. But like you said, you're so very much behind the scenes, even though you have such an important role and you are the other half that makes the whole. So,
Thanks. Yeah, so I honestly would not have taken the state chair position if Micah didn't agree to help me. So there was a vacancy, after the IPF USAPL split back 3 years ago in November or whatever. And I got like a couple phone calls, a couple emails, and I was actually in Hawaii at that time visiting on, Christmas break or something. And Anthony Harris was like, "Hey, did you get a call from national office?" I'm like, "About what?" And he's like, "They want you to be state chair for Nevada." And I was like, "Oh, okay." No, well, no, nobody said anything. And so after he said that, I called Mike. I was like, they want me to be state chair. And he's like, "Go for it." I was like, I'm not gonna do it without your help. And so I I used to help run the USAPL meets with Anthony Harris in Hawaii at that time before I moved. Um, and so it was funny, before I moved, they were asking me if I was gonna run meets when I moved to Vegas. And I was like, "Nope, hard no." Like I was very like adamant about, nope, I'm not running meets. I'm gonna go to Nevada. I'm gonna be an athlete, and that's all I want to do. I'm gonna build my life for me and my daughter, and I just want to be an athlete, And when I got the call, I was like, "Ooh, now I'm okay." I was kind of like thinking about it, debating, and I was like, because I know how much it takes, like the team and the family I had in Hawaii, and the partnership I had with Anthony Harris. It like we were the yin and yang back then, and so and we had a great team. Mana Barbell supported us, all the way, and so I knew I wasn't gonna get that right away when I moved to Nevada, and so that's why I was just like, nope, not gonna run any meets in Nevada, and so like when I met Mike, I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess it is I could do it, and so but I wasn't gonna do it without him. So any type of production that we have now, especially with USAPL, WRPF, you know, um, the fight or quit, whatever's going on, you know what I mean? I wouldn't really be there without him, because I wasn't gonna do it without him. And I'm not gonna do it by myself. So if he decides to stop, I'm stopping, and I've told him that. I'm like, "What if you throw in the towel, I'm going to," And so we definitely realize that, we do make a great team. And if one of us decides to, throw in the towel or whatever, then we can't do it without each other. It won't be the same, I guess,
yeah. And even
there's
when I reached out to Mike last year and I was like, "Hey, or beginning of this year, whatever it was, I want you to come help out." He's always coming to the Ghost Clash. "I want you to come help out, help me a little bit more on an administrative end." He's like, "I'm super down, but Kay has to come also." And I'm like, "Say less. She's available too. She's a huge asset." He's like, "Have her run your lifting class." I'm like, "Please, you're telling me, I'm begging you, But even in that, like you guys work as a perfect unit together, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's like a package deal.
I love it. Sign me up. Sign me up. Ghost Clash 4 announcements are coming up. I already kind of teased the flyer. That's coming up in the next weeks. So then I'll send you the date so you guys can
Yeah.
mark that down on your calendar.
Yeah, send me the dates. I can put it on our calendar. And it's funny. It's like whenever we look at the calendar, I'm like, "Wait, what are we doing? Okay, we're free."
Yeah. And I tell you that that's literally what it is. Like it's like based around my calendar too. Like whenever Laura and I want to go on a little trip, a vacation, whatever it is, I have to go look at all the meets that either I'm hosting, I have to be at, this, that, and the other. I bought tickets for this concert in November that I was so stoked at. I'm like, oh, I'm running a meet November 2nd. Perfect. It's November 8th. It's the next weekend. I book a cabin for Disney for my family because it's in Orlando, the concert. I'm like, we'll go to Disney for the weekend. Da 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 da. Didn't check my other calendar. I'm like,
Uh-oh.
that's the day of the American Pro. God damn it. So now I got to sell the concert tickets. There's a second night because that show is in Orlando. Then they go to North Carolina after that. So literally, I'm going to go to the American Pro because it's in the calendar. I got to be there, and I'm going to drive Sunday. I'll leave a little bit early, drive from Virginia down to North Carolina, and catch the tour of North Carolina. That's
Oh, wow.
commitment to the sport of powerlifting. But with that being said, what is next? What's on the calendar for FQ Promotions? What else do you guys have coming up? Let us know.
So one of Micah's ideas, since we kind of probably a few years now, I think this is the third year. Actually, it's the third year, I think, for BBO, second year for Iron Baddies. So his idea was to, how we're trying to promote, we're for the athletes about powerlifting. He had this idea about, hey, let's run two federations in a weekend. And at first I was like, what? Like, how does that work? And I kind of thought about it and I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Who cares? And so 2 years ago, last year, I guess it was our first year. He was like, I want to run two federations in one weekend, WRPF on Saturday, USAPL on Sunday. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's figure it out. And so that's our next thing coming up this summer. Next month, we have BBO. It's an all girls meet. That's going to be run on Saturday. And then Iron Baddies is USAPL, all girls meet, and that's on Sunday. So, just the idea of just trying to bring people together, athletes together, like it's about lifting. It's not about what letters in front of the name, sanction, and things like that. He's trying to do unsanctioned meets, and so still run the unsanctioned meets, mock meets, anything that we can just to kind of promote just lifting in general, bringing people and being about the community, and so he does things with Steph. So Steph and him, they own, Fight or Quit and the gym. So, they still try to do some things with, their whatever's going on, their business, and then FQ Promotions is more of the sanction meets. So that's how it's kind of different, but kind of the same and still trying to promote just athletes in general. But as far as FQ Promotions goes, we're doing the two federations in one weekend. That's July, I want to say 6th and 7th. So that's coming up. We have Poker Face, that's in September. We have the Olympia. Right now, the USAPL got us the Olympia. They wanted to try
Oh,
and
that's
see if
huge. That's
if
awesome.
local meet directors can run the Olympia. And so it's in Las Vegas this year. And so, they asked if we could do it. And I was like, okay. So we're trying to push it. It's a local meet. It's anybody's game in there. There's no qualifying total, no, things like that. So um hopefully it'll attract people to just want to come out. It's an expo,
Want to
and
come
just
for a
have fun.
convention? I mean, back in the day, that was the thing, right? Before pro,
Yeah.
whatever it
Yep.
was, people wanted to go to an expo because it was fun. It was a party. They're competing, but they're also getting to see their vendors, seeing athletes, see all that
Yep.
different stuff. So that's a
Yeah,
good
that's a big
opportunity for
one.
you guys to bring back kind of the hype behind those expos. Because I know this, you've been flopping back and forth the Olympia in Vegas, Orlando. And this
Yeah.
last year it was in Orlando, but it was qualifying only, and the
Mhm.
qualification was super, super steep. Like I
Yep.
don't remember what it was for the USAPL portion, but it was really, really steep, and it made it hard for people to compete. So that's pretty cool that it's open to anyone and everyone. You guys are doing that.
Yeah. So that one's open. We have a cash payout meet in December. So that should be fun too. But yeah, I mean that's kind of what we have for I mean, Micah's partnered with Anna with American Pro, so we'll be out doing that. Um, but so that's Anna and Micah. That's not really FQ Promotions, but I'm kind of like Micah's,
You're there. You're there holding it
the
down.
package deal on that one.
That's it. That's
So,
it.
but yeah, so I mean, we're kind of traveling out there, and then that's kind of about it. I mean, as far as FQ Promotions for, 2024, as far as like our sanction meets goes, yeah, so we're still kind of trying to plan 2025. I know it's still kind of early, but
I do the
our
exact
calendar
same
fills up
thing.
fast.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And it's better to know, it's better to give the athletes the dates so that they can
yeah,
plan their year, know
yeah,
early on. And I'm on that
yeah,
same tip. Like I said, we're
yeah.
10 months out from the Ghost Clash, but info's
Yeah.
already
We
coming, you
do
know?
we do have something in January and February and March already. So we kind of have an idea what we're doing, and it's just not official, how you have to put in the sanction and all the paperwork and stuff. So as soon as we kind of solidify that, we're gonna probably start to put that on the calendar because we like to um like you said, it's a timeline, right? Like we want at least 6 months, a year, for people to plan. And especially if they're going to come to Vegas, it's like a whole ordeal, like, traveling and stuff like that. So yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, I'm excited to see it. I think what you guys are doing with the two federations one weekend is really, really cool. It's something that I've thought about and wanted to do, but then again, being on my own, little logistics, all that, I'm like, you know what? Let's leave it to someone else. So I'm glad you guys have taken on very cool, different things for the sport like that. Excited to see all the meets unfold. I'm excited to see you in November at the American Pro 3. Run it back. I'll send you those dates for the Ghost Clash 4. You guys listening will be hearing those dates very, very soon. Kay, thank you for hopping on. I enjoyed chatting with you, and I hope everyone listening, you guys enjoyed this week's episode.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kay. Take it easy.